Yo, what is going on? Isaac Mashman here. Hope that you are having a fantastic day. I wanted to take a couple of minutes and record this training on the subject of podcasting. A lot of times people want to launch a podcast, but a lot of times people want to become a guest on other people's podcasts as well. And that is the realm that I want to talk about. I want to talk about, number one, what is the benefit? What is the ROI of being a guest on another person's podcast? And number two, talking about how you can get consistently booked on shows. And number three, what you can do to leverage the podcast that you have already been on or that you are about to be on to get the most out of your experience, the most out of your time, and the most out of being a guest at the end of the day. Now, you want to be a guest on a show because it takes a lot less effort. It's something that you don't have to worry about going through and creating the cover art and creating the intro and outro music and editing the audio and then promoting the audio every single time you have a new episode. You don't have to worry about getting the podcast distributed on different feeds. You don't have to deal with any of that crap that normally a podcaster has to go through. So by being a guest, you're leveraging another person's hard work and hard effort, which is why you need to respect every single show and every single podcaster that you interact with, because it is a commitment. It is a long-term commitment, and that allows you to really determine if that is a podcast that you, number one, want to be on and could associate yourself with, especially podcasts that have track records. So number one, you want to be on a podcast for exposure. You want to expose the world to something that you have going on. It could be about your book. It could be about your business. It could be about you and your expertise. Number two, you want to be on a podcast because you're wanting to drive sales. Maybe you have a brand new offer, or you have a book that you want to drive sales for. You have a business that you're trying to close more clients from. Podcasts are a great way, especially if you have an affiliate link, to where you go to the guest, or go to the host rather, and you say, hey, I want to be a guest on your podcast. I have an affiliate link for you to where you can get 10% commission, and your listeners, your audience, gets a 10% discount. So it's a win-win situation. You're getting in front of more people, the exposure aspect, you're driving sales, you're offering incentives, and you are paying the podcast host for having you on. That is the second reason why somebody would want to be on a podcast as a guest. Number three is you want to build trust. You want to build trust with not only a new audience, but just for your own personal brand and for your own credibility. Being on a podcast, just like recording a video like I'm recording today, helps build trust with a listener. It helps build trust with a new individual. When you're having a conversation back and forth about a niche subject, you are going to show the world that, hey, I know what the heck I'm talking about. And that cannot be expressed or more highly stated. So number one, exposure. Number two, sales. Number three, trust. Those are the three reasons why you might want to be on a show. Now, there is a difference between having an interview and a conversation. A lot of podcasts kind of fall somewhere in between, to where they're interviewing the guest, but they are also having a conversation with the guest. Then there are more niche situations where you are strictly being interviewed. It's not really interaction back and forth aside from, tell me about your upbringing. How did that impact you? What are you working on? Those are the conversations that are really direct, really straightforward, and allow you to connect with the audience on a very personal level because it's all about you. A conversation is more mutual. You're having a conversation between yourself and the podcaster. That can really be more of the Joe Rogan style of podcast, where you're talking about a subject, you're bouncing ideas off of one another, and it's a little bit more in the entertainment category more times than not. Now, how can you get booked on more podcasts? You already know that shows can increase your exposure, increase your sales, and increase your trust. So before I get into the strategy side of conversation and actually give you tactics that you can use to get consistently booked on podcasts, I want to address a couple different concerns, because you probably have one of the two. One is that the market is oversaturated, that there are too many podcasts for you to ever break free and break through. Now, here's the thing. Just because there are millions of people who make art around the world doesn't mean that their art is less impactful. It just means that it needs to be seen by the right person, by the right people. Just because there are millions of people around the world that make music doesn't make the music less impactful or less influential. Again, it's about being heard by the right person. A podcast allows you to express your credibility, increase your exposure, gives you something to market, and it is just a fantastic opportunity for you to leverage. Now, when it comes to how many podcasts are around the globe, you have 3 to 5 million by approximations. This includes the United States, India, China, and every other country in between. That might seem like a lot, but if you think about how many podcast episodes are out there, you have between 70 million and 150 million, going with the lower estimate of 70 million with 5 million podcasts. That is only roughly 15 episodes per show, right? If you think about the numbers, you do the math, 70 million divided by 5 million, you're equaling a little bit over 15 episodes per show. So that means that not every podcast has 1,000 episodes. Not every podcast has 15 episodes, but that is the majority, which gives you something to indicate the quality of show that you want to get on. You want to get on shows that are having consistent listenership, that they already have a little bit of a track record. If a show has over 50 episodes, that is an indicator that you should probably pay attention to that person a little bit more because they've showed up time and time and time again. Now, concern number 2 is that there aren't enough shows and that you're not going to be able to get on a show. And that is really a limiting belief because you think that you don't have anything of value to present a podcast platform. That isn't the case. You have expertise, you have your personality, you have experience, you have things that you could share with an audience and with a podcast. So all you need to do is get over that limiting belief and say, hey, I want to be able to share my experiences. I want to be able to have the conversation. I want to be able to help you out. You are providing value in the form of experience and knowledge, etc. And that podcast is providing you with value, which is a platform more times than not. So just wanted to get that, kind of cleared up out of the air really quick. If we were to look at why you haven't been on a podcast before as a guest, you probably have avoided it because you thought it was extremely difficult. And I'm here to tell you that it's really not as complicated as you think it is. And after you get on a couple shows, the process will it'll be second nature to you and it'll just get easier and easier over time. This is what I have done to get featured on dozens of podcasts and to have different conversations and interviews. So let's just go ahead and throw that excuse out the window and jump into strategy number 1. First and foremost, every month you make a very quick post or every other month saying, I am looking to be a guest on new podcasts. Who has a show? ? Now what this does is you're putting out a call to action, really seeking engagement. You're not seeking and looking needy. You're looking for somebody to have an interaction with, to have a conversation with. So a person who has a podcast will go to your page or go to your comment or go to your post and then leave a comment saying, hey, I have a show, I'd love to have a conversation or I'd love to have you on. Now, what will happen is if that person has been following you for an extended amount of time, they're going to skip the pre-interview process more times than not and just want you on the show because they've already seen that you're an expert or somebody that can provide value. The other option is that they are going to have a pre-interview process for you. You're going to see if you're a good fit. They're going to vet you, make sure that energies and synergies align, and then you're going to do the interview. Now, the other thing that could happen by making a quick post saying I'm looking for guests, or I'm looking to be a guest rather, is people will tag podcast hosts or podcasts that they have listened to themselves or that they know have a show and say, hey, Isaac over here is looking to be a guest on a show. You should have him on. That edification is going to help you automatically be perceived higher in the mind of a stranger and lead to potential introduction and lead to that conversation. So strategy number 1 is every month or every other month, you make a very simple post that says, hey, I'm looking to be a guest on more podcasts. Who has a show? So strategy number 2 is a little bit more competitive and time consuming, but it is also effective. So what you can do is use softwares such as Podmatch and Matchmaker.fm to find new podcasts that are actively looking for guests. So how these softwares function and how they work is you create a guest profile and podcast hosts create a show profile. So these are shows that are actively looking for guests, and you as a guest are able to pitch yourself to that podcast. Now, this is very competitive. You need to get your pitch straight of saying, hey, these are the things that I could deliver on. I've listened to a couple episodes of your show. I would love to be a guest. Make sure you're taking a little bit of time and actually listening to the show first and being able to kind of do something than just a blanket statement of, hey, I'm looking for exposure. Say that, hey, I listened to this episode. I was blown away by this. I agree or I disagree, whatever it is. You're showing that you're not just mass emailing or mass pitching, just, with the copy and paste template. Oh, hi. Excuse my coffee break. Strategy number 3, anyways, getting back to the topic, is a little bit more time consuming, a little bit more effort is going to be required, maybe even making a financial investment with time, but it is something that can be automated and or delegated based off of necessity and experience and desire for where you want to take it. But I would always recommend you start with the first two strategies first. You start with working within your network and finding people that you're already close to or that have some sort of synergy that you know exists, a little bit more trust. You're warmer and closer to those people that are in network. Then the second strategy, using software such as Podmatch or Matchmaker, I would also recommend, because on that platform you have podcasts that are actively seeking guests or that have had guests on in the past, and they know that they're going to get pitched. Now, for this next strategy, that isn't necessarily the case. This is going to call for outreach. You are reaching out to a stranger, somebody that you do not know, somebody that shares no mutual connections to your knowledge, and saying, hey, I want to be on your podcast. Now, you're not going to come out of the blue and just say, hey, I'm looking to be on a show. I saw your show. You're going to want to actually engage with that person and start building rapport and having a conversation with them. But what you can do is, if you see that that person has a podcast, you go to their profile on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and if you see that they have guests on every week or have a bi-weekly interview, then you might want to reach out to them if you genuinely think that you could provide value and that there could be an exchange. Now, if you go to their profile and they don't have any interviews, don't think that you're going to be the first person. And I would never say that you need to jump to this third strategy if you have never been interviewed before. If you have, maybe a couple interviews under your belt, still go into the first strategy. Start with that, and then once you get to like the dozen mark, and then like 2 and 3 dozen interviews over the span of a year, and people know that you're doing interviews, and you could say, hey, I've been featured on 30 different shows. I would love you to be the 31st. And that leads into the next topic of this video. So the final thing I want to talk about, we've already talked about what you get from a show, why you'd want to be on a podcast as a guest. We've also given you 3 different strategies. We've had that conversation, but this is how you can leverage the interviews when they come out and what you can look to gain. So number 1, talking about podcast guest etiquette. Whenever somebody launches your episode and airs it out and blasts it across social media and they tag you, by all means, you need to share it. Share it with your audience. And this can be a selling point to, but before you even do the interview, and saying, hey, yeah, I would absolutely love to share it to my network, because then you're providing them more exposure by working in your network. Remember that value exchange I talked about? This is the same thing. So podcast etiquette number 1, make sure that you are promoting the hell out of the episode and saying, it was such an honor to be interviewed on so-and-so's podcast. Man, this was a great episode. Check it out. If they send you graphics, promote the graphics. If they send you a video clip, promote the video clip. That is a win-win situation all across the board. So the second thing that you want to make sure you're doing is putting all of the different places and shows that you've been interviewed on into a media kit. Now, a media kit is pretty much just a compilation of media assets. It can be your biography, your social media links, photos and headshots and different images that person can use to promote out. You're pretty much combining every single thing that makes you look good into one place. It could be a Google Drive, it could be a PDF, it could be a folder, whatever it is, make it shareable. And this media kit is really going to help boost your credibility, and it doesn't rely on you answering all the questions time and time again. If somebody says, can you send me your bio? You're not going to type out a new bio every single time you want to get on a show. So imagine you have a bio that's already typed out. You send it over and say, hey, I also have some photos that you have the right to publish. I also have all of the different places that I've been featured in the past. And what you do is, by having this media kit, you're going to be able to leverage the hell out of it. I have a page that says Isaac Mashman in the media, and I link every single podcast that I've ever been on, every single press release, every single press mention and quote. I have that all in a document that can show that, hey, Isaac's been on 30 podcasts in the past 12 months. He's been featured in 100 press articles in the past, 36 months, whatever it is. It is a compilation and a combination of all of the different places and people that you've interacted with, which verifies your authority, it verifies your identity, it verifies that you're somebody that is serious. So when would you send this media kit out? You would send it out during the booking process. If they say, hey, where are your social media links? Do you have any photos, etc.? When they ask you, you say, hey, here you go. Or what you can do prematurely is say, Hey, I also have a media kit I could send you that has all of my information if you'd like to check it out, just to make your life easier and for convenience. You're expressing convenience. Whenever you're wanting to, interact with somebody and it's going to require them to exert effort, you want to be able to save effort, and that shows that you respect that individual. At the end of the day, professionals want to work with professionals, and that's something that I cannot express highly enough. So in conclusion, we've covered a few different things today in this podcast training. We've talked about, number one, what are you getting out of a podcast? You're getting exposure, sales, and trust. And then the strategy side of things, you're going to start within your network, you're going to use softwares, and then after that point of graduation, ultimately, then you can start thinking about reaching out to new people and having those conversations. So I would highly recommend you take every single thing that I taught you today, apply it, execute on it, and I would love to know what strategies you would also include, because this is an intensive. I missed a few things. I could do 3 hours of conversation and training on the subject of podcasting, but I wanted to make this super simple for each and every one of you that are looking to start getting on some different podcasts and really expanding your personal brand and getting exposure and building your business and, are serious about this whole, social media, internet space, digital age thing. So leave a comment below. Let me know your thoughts. Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and I would love to connect with you. Much love.